I'm curious if you see, now, none of us has a crystal ball, right? But if we're going into this bull market and we sort of, what kind of parallels do you think we're going to see looking off the past one? Like, as I sort of summarize what I saw, at least a few things in the last bull cycle, we saw a lot of leverage. We saw this kind of concept of, don't sell any coins, just borrow against your coins. Like that was kind of the thinking. We saw hash price went through the moon, right? Like it was just this crazy. Yeah. And so that means the price to obtain the mining machines went through the roof as well. So I guess my question for you is, do you see similar parallels happening this cycle, or do you see something different? Like more maturity this cycle, maybe.
Every cycle is slightly different than the past, right? For us, have been around, like we've seen this, but there are always some similarities. And I think some of them are unfortunately tied to human nature. So we may see it again. I think on the Bitcoin side, before going to the mining side, unfortunately, we are going to be seeing people taking leverage again. We always see, right? They're going to look, particularly depending on where interest rates are. Maybe now not that much because rates are a little bit higher. But that always happens, right? Because it starts to feel like it's prices. As human beings, we're horrible in predicting discontinuities, right? So we always think that the next day is very similar to the last day, and we don't look in a longer time period. And and we saw this a little bit earlier this year when everybody was super excited about the ETF, and the price kept going up month after month after month, right? And nothing is guaranteed, but people are going to leverage and they're going to get more exposure. That's a fact. It's the nature of the markets also. I think that, and unfortunately, because we still have a lot of free money out there, right, which again goes back to a lot of the problems that we mentioned, leverage is going to happen. We're also going to see, again, the cycle of people looking at the new Bitcoin and all of that. That always happens, and that may be happening a little bit with inscriptions and, all of that already. And I still think that a lot of this doesn't have value and the only thing that really has value is Bitcoin. But again, just like that, a lot of things are gonna emerge. In mining, what we've seen, I think, in the last few cycles is, as you said, a combination of hash price going up. By the way, hash price just hit an all-time low, right? So after the halving, so we're actually still not even close to that, but it will happen in the next bull market for sure. And then you start to see some interesting things. And this is part of our bet in mining also. If you look at the prices of ASICs, right, in the last few cycles, they exploded up. Like really, really well. The prices of ASICs are usually measured in dollars per terahash that you have out there. And it's hard to look at the longer term chart because it change, machine types change and efficiency changes, but it gives you an idea. In short periods of time, it doesn't matter because efficiency is not changing that much. And you saw prices almost multiply by 10 in some cases, right? Because machines are very scarce, people really need them to think about the economics, right? If Bitcoin price starts to go up significantly, places where before the energy price was too high for you to mine, become economically efficient for you to mine. So people would hash with anything. They would get, remember in the last cycle, people were taking out, old S9s and just plugging them back in again, and they were profitable, right? And pretty much anywhere. It gets to a point that it may be profitable for you to plug a Bitcoin miner at home and still pay residential rates, and it's still going to be making money on that, right? If the price goes up quickly enough. So there's a lot of demand for machines, a lot of demand for efficient machines. The inventory dries out, and there's a bottleneck. I mean, you can't just, the Bitmain, all these, they can't be producing more and more, machines indefinitely in the short term. They can in the long term. So inventory dries out, price explodes up, right? We may see the same thing. I think we will, depending on how quickly the market goes up. Then I think more on the infrastructure side, it becomes harder and harder also to deploy these machines, right? And this is something that is happening, even regardless of a Bitcoin price move, because there is more demand for infrastructure from AI and other competitors that wasn't out there in the past, right? It's different and it's very exaggerated because I think the demands for AI are much more specific than the ones for Bitcoin, but it's definitely putting some pressure out there. And it's definitely, I think, crowding out some of the opportunities out there. primarily in the places that are good for AI, right? And you see it with a lot of the public mining companies out there, all diversifying into AI as well. So that's another factor to have in mind, because that's going to put pressure on the infrastructure and the infrastructure costs. And this is one of the reasons we've been thinking more and more about building our own infrastructure in some places. Marathon, for example, has always had a very asset-light structure and has moved, through time into owning their own infrastructure as well, exactly to avoid these risks, right, of getting into a bull market and not having a place to deploy your machines. That's definitely a risk, right? So I think these things are things that could happen as we get closer and closer to a bull market. But Stephan, just one thing that I think we've learned with Bitcoin is that whenever we think something is for sure, whenever we think that the bull market is coming for sure or a bear market is coming for sure, it's the end of Bitcoin, or Bitcoin is we're seeing hyper Bitcoinization. We're always wrong. Always.
Right. Yeah, I think that's right.
And on that thing, I'm gonna be right? That we're all gonna be wrong. It's impossible to predict Bitcoin price. Just yesterday, Mother's Day, we're having this big lunch, and some of my friends, family and friends are over, and like, oh, so. They know I'm in Bitcoin. They're like, so is now the right time to buy? And I told them, like, yeah, now is the right time to buy, the same way that it was, when it was a fraction of where it was, and I told you to buy, and it didn't buy, and the price, divided by 2 in the meantime, and it multiplied by 10, and that's going to continue to happen. We're going to continue to see massive volatility, because this is good news. This is great news. It just means that we are early, right? If the price was stable and it wasn't changing that much, it would mean that, we were very close to hitting the total addressable market of Bitcoin. And we're not. Bitcoin is still a drop in the ocean of monetary solutions that store a value out there, right? So, this is what long term I really look at. And if that's going to happen in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 30 years, I have no idea. But I think eventually it's going to happen, because, just fundamentally it's the best source. I think it's the best kind of money we've ever seen, right? And with I think long term, it's going to continue to capture monetary premium from everywhere else.
Yeah, I think you're right there, and definitely, I think it's right to approach with a low ego, in the sense of we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if it's a bull market or a bear market or whatever, and you just sort of have to be ready for multiple different scenarios.